You know what? I've got a bit of an unpopular opinion. Unlike my buddy teacher, and I actually haven't had a chance to talk to Damon in the last little while. I think I'm one of the few that are actually pretty psyched for the new bands, or relatively new. This would have been new if I actually wasn't gone for all of Spooktober. By the way, I hope you guys all had an awesome spoopy Halloween. I'm actually kind of sad I didn't get back into town from work in time to do anything festive, but I'm pretty psyched about the relatively new bands, the ones for the Griffin for Fox and Hook for Lumia, and cannot recall the last one, but it's probably also crazy. Lumia, Fox. Which was the last one? I don't know. I'm sure one of you guys is going to remind me in the comment section what the last major band was in Europe. I think it was specifically Germany. I don't know. I haven't checked in a little while, but from what I can tell, it seems that a lot of North American circuits are going to be doing it too if they haven't started doing it already. But the reason why I'm actually really happy for those bands is not because I've got any particular vendetta against those decks. I mean, I think they were excellent decks, and I think they had really good mechanics and were well designed. I mean, people always find a way to exploit certain ways of playing, and I mean that's the whole point of a dynamic card game. You're supposed to be able to find these crazy, janky, broken combinations so that you can win. The only problem with that is that it makes things a little bit dull, right? Like, I mean, just look at Worlds and look at the major circuits from last year. The top tens were always, oh, that's what it was Prisia. So the top tens were always either Prisia, Fox, or Lumia, doing some different variation of the same deck, right? But the reason why I'm psyched for those cards getting banned and kind of bringing in a fresh breath of air into the whole, I guess, competitive circuit is that old rulers, like my girl Lunya slash Nyarlathotep on the other side, get kind of a second chance, right? They get a second chance to use some of the more good cards that would otherwise have worked perfectly with them, and if it wasn't for the the competitive circuits being so ridiculously stacked towards those three deck builds that I mentioned before, they probably would have seen top 10 or even at least top 20 in 2017, right? But anyhow, so I made a new Lunya the Wolf Girl slash Nyarlathotep the True False Legend deck. And actually, if I'm going to give complete credit here and be honest and put all cards on the table, my inspiration from this deck actually came from another YouTuber that I keep into contact with quite frequently, Scribble Sketch. And specifically, it was one of the comments on one of her videos when she was I think she was either making a Nyarlathotep deck or she had Hastur or something in there, and somebody mentioned the fact that you can use that new card from Ancient Knights, Tactics of the Dark Elves, with Hastur chasing the goats, so that anytime that he's attacking, as long as obviously you're not choosing a target with barrier or something like that, he would kill them with his procced attack, do 400 damage to something. So I thought that was really cool, so I decided to make an entire deck around that. And honestly, you can't really make a ridiculously good Hastur deck without having a Nyarlathotep as your ruler. And on top of that, because of things like Lethal Arrow, and I actually took my Demon Flames out of the deck, but you could use both with her ruler ability. Actually, let's just get right into it. Her ruler ability, her, I guess, automatic or passive ability being, whenever a Resonator you control attacks, this card deals 100 damage to target Resonator. So you have any small dinky creature or Hastur or anything like that attacking, you do the 100 damage from this, again, as long as it has a legal target, and then you pop one Darkness Will for the Lethal Arrow, which I will show you guys in the deck later, and you just killed something for a passive ability off your ruler. Right on the card, she's got Judgment for 2 red and 2 colorless, and Energize, like all of the rulers that came out after Curse, or I guess this one technically came out before Curse. On the other side, she is Nyarlathotep the False Legend. She is a 12/8, which is actually still pretty strong even by the standards of the decently colossal rulers of Ancient Knights and the starter decks from that set. She is a human Cthulhu with swiftness and limit 2. I mean, you guys probably know what limit is by now. And when this card enters the field, it deals 800 damage to target Resonator. Now, I've actually wanted to show off my Nyarlathotep deck for a very long time, even from like right when I first got it. And originally the two colors that I had built for this deck were red and blue, but I sprinkled in black as well just because I needed to have the tactics of the Dark Elves in the deck. But the one thing I've always had a gripe with for this card, and I've always got Teacher to kind of give me a hard time because he says, oh hey, my old Alice block ruler pretty much does what she does on your J ruler side, but significantly better. And of course, when he's talking about that, he's talking about his Uber Sylvia Gil Pellarilius. Pellarilius? I've never actually read this card. Anyway, Teacher actually left his cards at my place from the last time he was over when he made that, not made, but when he showed off that Rhea deck with me. Anyway, the gripe I've had is the fact that if you actually look really close here, it says that it enters the field and deals 800 damage to target Resonator. It's Resonator instead of J/Resonator, and I feel like that was something that could have easily eroded just to make this card a little bit better. But it seems that if there isn't a ridiculous amount of play of a particular card, there's very little chance after release that they're going to make any changes to the card, right? So it's a bit of a lost opportunity, I think, for making a really excellent card even better, but you know what? I don't work for Forcible, so that's really not for me to say. And then her final ability is, at the end of turn, if there are no limit counters on this card, put it into the ruler area as a ruler. All right, guys, so let's get right into things. I can't recall if when I built this deck I had any proxied cards, but if there are, I'm sure that I will I'll mention them as I go along. Let's do stones first. So actually, you know what? Right off the bat, here's some proxies. I run 10 stones in the deck, pretty basic. I run 4 of the Magic Stone of Scorched Bales. In here, I've just got 3 Fire Stones as proxy, just because I don't really want to go fishing through all of my decks to get all of the red-black stones. Then I run 2 of the Magic Stone of Dark Depth, blue-black. So right now we've got coverage for fire in 4 stones, for water in 2 stones, and darkness in 6 stones. And then the last 4 cards are 4 of Magic Stone of Hearth Score. Unfortunately, when I was opening up Curse, I never got any new versions of Hearth's core, so these ones are all the Vingolf 2 ones that I got from Dayman. So with that, we have a coverage of 6 for blue, and I guess that would be 8 for red. Okay, let's get right into the cards. Okay, as you guys probably know, I've already mentioned it already, Hastur is going to be a decently pivotal part of this deck, so a really good pairing with Hastur is the Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic. Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic. It is a 1-drop blue Chant, quick cast Remnant, which makes it phenomenal. And as you guys know, my little joke with pretty much anytime you make a blue deck and you can make this card work into the deck style, you're winning, you know, winning for days. So it has the abilities, target Resonator loses all abilities and becomes a 4/4 bear until the end of turn. So actually, if you guys haven't been checking out the comment section of my, I can't remember if it was the repost or the original post of my ring deck, where somebody brought it to my attention that the way that they use the word becomes in the ruling for cards and the abilities for cards is that even if it was like a 15/15 creature or something, but has like -8 or something on it, it doesn't matter. All of its stats 0 back down to 400, and it loses all abilities. So one of the major reasons why I run this card, aside from Hastur, of course, is to kind of cover yourself whenever you've got, like, I'll use pretty much the nemesis, the bane of my existence, Dayman's Valentina, or not his Valentina deck, but his Gil Lapis deck with that red-black Valentina that when it hits the field, it destroys a 2-cost or less card, and it gains haste and all this other stuff if you remove cards from, or you put cards from your opponent's removed area into the bottom of their deck. So I pretty much use this to be able to go like, oh, okay, whatever. Your proc still goes off for the enter the field, of course, because I don't have a target until you enter the field. I still lose a 2 cost or less, but you lose haste, you lose flying, you lose all your buffs. You're a 4/4. Okay, cool. So I run 2 of those guys. What else have you got there, Master Fija? I've got a card that honestly I feel is super underrated. Like Super Saiyan 4 blue waffle maker underrated. Like, I'm not even joking. I feel like with especially like massive asterisk espazioli at the bottom with the new rulers that all have, I think most of them have tap abilities or sack abilities for tokens to do all sorts of stuff. Shackles of Ice should be honestly in almost any blue deck nowadays. Like, okay, everybody runs Abdul so that they shut down enter the field abilities. A lot of people run the Neo Barrier of Shadows so that they stop activated abilities of Resonators and then eventually activated abilities for the player in general. But why does nobody run Shackles of Ice? So Shackles of Ice is an addition, a 1-drop blue from Curse of the Frozen Casket, and it has the following ability. As long as this card is not bestowed to a card, players cannot play Ruler's activated abilities. Bestowed Resonators controller cannot play its activated abilities. So I run 2 of these things in the deck, and then it's a 1-drop blue and then 1 blue to bestow. But realistically, because of the fact that on her ruler side she has no activated abilities, like she doesn't tap for anything other than a stone, which apparently isn't considered an activated ability, her abilities are automatic, right? Or passive, or whatever the hell you want to call it. So this wouldn't affect us, but it would essentially shut down rulers like, for instance, the Gil the Gifted Conjurer, or Gil whatever on his other side, where he's tapping to get those Fresh Breeze Elemental, right? That's an activated ability. You're tapping to find it. So I'd be like, nope, you can't do that. Or your Evil Tree, your new Idrisil, where it's like pay green or black, pay some life or whatever, and then you get something from the grave. Or no, you don't pay life, whatever. You pay green or black, and then you grab something from the grave or whatever. I can't remember the ability. Don't judge me. So it shuts down that as well. It shuts down your I guess I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe. I think it shuts down your Freyla deck's ability to pay life to grab a creature from the grave and put it back into your hand. So that's another thing. It shuts down Rhea for getting mystery counters. It's just like, why is this card not seeing more play? And then you could be like, oh, Master Fiji, but you're running 2 in the deck. Why would you do that aside from having it seen more frequently? Well, the truth is that, okay, sure, if you had both of them on the field doing nothing, then it would be kind of stagnant, right? It wouldn't be too crazy. But because of its ability to bestow onto a Resonator, you could have one on the field not bestowed, so you'd shut down your opponent's abilities on their rulers. And then the other one, you could just go, boop, okay, cool. You're one crazy tap-a-doodle creature, can't do anything anymore. So I run 2 Shackles of Ice. That was a super long-winded explanation for why, but I really do think that it has a lot of merit and it's not being utilized enough. Then I run 3 of Bastet's Fascination. It is a 1-drop red quick cast chant from Legacy Lost. It always throws me off when I look at the the abbreviation for Legacy Lost, because it's one of the few sets since I started playing the game that has the 3 typical abbreviations, but it's only a 2-word, right? Like Curse, I guess Curse of the Frozen Casket is 4. Whatever, you know what? Never mind. So it's got the ability, target J/Resonator must block this card if able, draw a card. Now, this is going to work really well with our Tactics of the Dark Elves, or whenever we want to have this one other Resonator, I'll show you guys later, be able to body into things, do the damage, do lethal arrow with it, and then that creature dies so that we can search for more of it in the deck. Honestly, by that explanation, if you guys have any knowledge of Ancient Knights, you should probably already be able to guess what that Resonator is, but I'll show it to you later anyway. Also, these are 3 cards in our deck that net us another, or not net us, but let us draw another card. Netting would be like, you know, a card that lets you draw 2 cards, right? Because you're making an additional card. Anyway, man, I'm rambling a lot in this one. You guys can totally just fast forward past every time that I show a new card if you want. So The third card, and this one was actually part of the original build of the deck when it was just blue and red, Summoned from Memoria, another excellent card from Curse of the Frozen Casket. It's 1 blue Chant. I wish it had Quick Cast, but it doesn't. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put a card from among them into your hand, put the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. So it's another one of those draw cards, and specifically it lets us scry for 3 essentially, and then draw one of the 3, which helps us search out our Hasturs or search out our Ice Shackles or anything like that that we have less of in the deck. And then a staple of a lot of red decks, especially your crazy doodle burn decks, and actually a card that specifically came out with this deck, there is a Lightning Strike, a 1 red Chant quick cast. Choose one. This card deals 500 damage to target J/Resonator, or this card deals 500 damage to your opponent. Really, I mean, like, really we want to use this to be hitting our opponent, but if we've got no other avenue and for some reason we've just been completely zapped of all of our board presence in terms of creatures and we need to be able to get rid of a big meanie, we can definitely pair that up with this next card, which is 4 of Lethal Arrow, and unfortunately I do not have any of the full arts in this deck. The full arts that I had left over, I'm actually planning on putting into a Mikage deck, which I wanted to get done for Halloween, but again, I wasn't in town because of work, so I'll try to put that thing together and get it to you guys in the next couple of weeks. So, Lethal Arrow. You guys should know it, you guys should love it, you guys should live it. It is a 1-drop Darkness Chant from Ancient Knights with Quick Cast to destroy target damaged Resonator, which, I mean, like this thing, with that thing, or with lightning, or with any of our creatures, it's just so good. It's just so good. And you know what? I mentioned this earlier, and I wasn't bashing on it. This is a really useful card, and a lot of decks that utilize darkness, especially if they play in a competitive circuit, should be running this card. It is Neo Barrier of Shadows, a 2-drop Darkness Edition for 1 darkness and 1 colorless, with the following ability. Your opponent pays 1 more to play activated abilities of Resonators they control, which again was brought to my attention also applies to tap abilities, like for instance your Mana Dorks for Elves, which really slows them down. And that has Seal 8, which, I mean, realistically we don't really get to in this deck very often, and I don't run the new Dark Alice in this deck, so I don't get to break the Darkness Seals, but in the off chance we make it to that late game, Seal 8, this card gains the following text: as long as you control 8 or more magic stones, your opponent can't play activated abilities at all. Wowzers. Then I run 2 of this next card, which it is a card that's specifically for a certain ruler, but we kind of stick handle around it, and it's the only source of addition destruction in the deck. It is a 2-drop quick cast chant for 2 blue called Shaela's Foresight, and it has a bit of a small thesis statement as its actual ability. It is choose 1. If your J ruler is Shaela or Shaela the Mermaid Princess, choose up to 3 instead. Put target attacking Resonator on top of its owner's deck, or put target addition on top of its owner's deck. That's the one we want. So I guess it's not really addition destruction. It's kind of like addition denial. And then, or target player shuffles all magic stones from their graveyard into their magic stone deck, then shuffles all other cards from their graveyard into their deck, or draw a card. So this is one of those cards that I absolutely love having in decks because it's a utility card, right? It gives you the ability to respond to different situations in different ways, right? Like you want to get rid of an addition, like for instance, if your opponent puts down Zero's Magic Circle or Circle of Protection, whatever it's called, and your opponents all have barrier, essentially this deck becomes a bit of a wet noodle. So you need to be able to get rid of that addition, at least for a little while. Or let's say that they're just coming to rhinoceros you in the face with a super creature. You're like, no, you know what? Get rid of that for attacking me. Or let's say that a lot of our Hasturs have been removed from our hand, or they've been killed on the field, and you really need to get those things back into your deck. Shuffle your Magic Stone deck, shuffle your regular graveyard into your deck, and then you've got a second chance, or a third chance, or a fourth chance of seeing those cards again. Then I run a card that is very dear to my heart from Ancient Knights, which unfortunately got eroded, which is a massive kick in the pants, but you know what? I can kind of see where they're coming from. I mean, a 2-drop card that has the ability to target J/Resonators would be nuts, but I mean, like, come on. Somebody must have playtested this. They must have said, you know what, the card has to be good enough as it is. It's not ridiculously OP. It's not underpowered, whatever. Anyway, so I run 3 of Dino-Rush, a 2-drop chant that's got red and colorless for the cast with the following ability. Target J/Resonator, which actually you can just cover up that J. It's just Resonators now. So target Resonator you control deals damage equal to its attack to another target Resonator. So this is a lot like the old Battle for Ataractia card. I actually think it's called Battle for Ataractia. It's not like the set, but the actual card. The only major difference is that I think that one had Remnants. I'm not sure it had Quickcast. I don't think it had Quickcast. But that one had the 2 creatures dealing damage to each other. Whereas this one is one direction, right? Your guy does damage to another guy. So if you've got whatever dinky creature or Hastur or whatever on the field, if the creature itself is strong enough to destroy your opponent and it sneezes coming... Oh, jeez. Ooh, I feel good. Okay. If your creature's strong enough to kill your opponent's creature by just dealing damage, that's fine. But if you've got a creature on the field and you want to just have them do the damage and then kill them off with lethal arrow, or if you have the tactics of the Dark Elves already in effect for that turn, then this thing essentially just gives you the ability to do the damage without having to lose the creature or without having to risk losing your blocker or whatever. Remember, kids, redundancy is redundant. And then to kind of go off of that ability that Shaela's Foresight... What is Shaela's Foresight? Yeah, Shaela's Foresight. I'm having like micro Alzheimer's here, guys. I'm sorry. Going off of Shaela's Foresight, kind of like ability to kind of recur grave and get those Hasturs back onto the field if we lose them earlier mid-game. There's also this 4-drop chant, 2 darkness and 2 colors, called Dark Revolution. This is another card. Mind you, again, like, I don't know if I haven't been paying attention to YouTube enough recently, but I feel like there really hasn't been too much in terms of deck builds. Like, maybe it's because it's that time of year where there aren't too many competitive things happening and people kind of like wait for those to come out to see like, oh yeah, you know what, this is a pretty cool combination, but it would work better if I tweak this or whatever. But I haven't been seeing too many deck builds since Ancient Knights. I don't know, maybe I'm just not looking at the right places. But this is another card from Ancient Knights, and it has the ability to put target Resonator from your graveyard into the field. So it is pretty much Monster Reborn for Force of Will. And I haven't seen it in too many deck builds, but you know what? I thought I'd put it into mine. Okay, here is the card that started it all. The card that made me want to make this deck. It is Tactics of the Dark Elves, and look at that beautiful full art. Oh my. Oh my. It is a 3-drop chant, 2 darkness and 1 colorless, with the ability up to 2. So this is awesome. This is even better than that Gil Alhamak card that was like, I think it's cast for one light and 1 darkness for its awakening. But anyway, this one's for 2 creatures as opposed to just the 1 for that other card. So up to 2 target Resonators cannot be destroyed until the end of turn, and gain, whenever this card deals damage to a Resonator, destroy that Resonator until the end of turn. So, Hastur, or Dino-Rush, or anything that can body into your opponents. Your things don't die, your opponents say bye-bye to their Resonators, that is. Okay, here's a card, and you know what, I can't remember if it was one of the videos that actually got restored, because we didn't get all of our videos back from when we had our embarrassing, unfortunate hack, and we lost all of our videos, but I can't remember if it was the one where Dayman and I kind of did a small review of Ancient Knights, and we did our results for the pre-release, what we got from opening packages and stuff. But this is a card that I remember either on or off camera ripping on pretty hard, because I'm going like, okay, just looking at the card, I'm like, oh nice, they're bringing goblins as a creature type. But then you look closer and you're like, just kidding, it's an evil spirit. And then I saw the new cards for the new set. I'm going like, what? They're bringing in what's-her-face's spirits. It's awesome. That means I can use red cap in the deck. And then I realized this is an evil spirit, and those guys are wicked spirits. Come on, Force of Will. Come on. What are you doing? What are you doing? Give me something to work with here. Anyway, so this is a card that I kind of ripped on, but when you use it in the context of this deck, it's actually really good, and it helps you thin out your deck because of what I'm about to show you. So it is a 1-drop Evil Spirit for 1 red Resonator. That's a 2/2 called Red Cap, or 200/200. And it's got Swiftness, which is phenomenal because it's essentially the new Fire Sprite. When this card is put into a graveyard from the field, search your deck for a card named Red Cap, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So we use this dude, he drops onto the field, we body into something, we lethal arrow it, or we use we drop 2 of these dudes if we had both in hand, and we use the Tactics of the Dark Elves. And when these things die, I mean, like, it wouldn't die from Tactics of the Dark Elves, but you know what I mean. When these things die, it helps us search for more of them, which means that we're constantly like throwing fodder at our opponent. And it helps thin out the deck, right? Like, these are pretty much Swiftness cards that let us draw, but specifically for another card. Like, I think that's phenomenal. So I run 4 of Red Cap. Well, we're nearing the end. My goodness, I am shaking a lot this video. Sorry about that, guys. I run 2 of Bastet, Goddess of Cats. Now, originally when I made the deck, I only ran the 2 because I only had the 2. I think I drew like this one and then this shiny one I got from Dayman, but now that I've play tested the deck a little bit, it actually works phenomenally with 2, especially with a decent amount of deck thinning from Red Cap and the drawing I've got from the other cards. So it is a 2-drop Cthulhu Resonator for 1 red and 1 colorless. It is a 3/7, so it's more defensive than it is offensive, and it has the following ability. And you honestly, both abilities on here are really good. So if a Cthulhu you control would deal damage to a J/Resonator, it deals double that much instead. So this is phenomenal with Hastur, or phenomenal for when you flip Lunya to her Nyarlathotep side. But the biggest thing, and honestly, I've been super guilty of this in the past, the biggest thing to remember is that it's double the amount of damage to J/Resonator. So if your Hastur manages to swing through and hit your opponent, it's still only hitting for that 9 or whatever the buff it's getting from something else, right? And then the second ability, which is the one that I use more often, is Inheritance for 1 red and 1 colorless, so the same casting cost. Put 5 limit counters on target Cthulhu, J/Resonator with limit. So your Hastur can go from being a 2 limit to a 5 limit, or the same thing with Nyarlathotep. Here we have probably the most important card in this deck, which is Hastur Chasing the Goats. He is a 3-drop, 2 red and 1 colorless 9/9 human Cthulhu with limit 2. So going off of Bastet again with her inheritance ability, really good. And this card gains swiftness as long as your J/ruler is Lunya the Wolf Girl or Nyarlathotep the ruler, the true false legend, the ruler of the false legend. Whenever this card attacks or blocks, it deals 400 damage to target J/Resonator, and at the end of turn, if there are no limit counters on this card, return it to its owner's hand. So a funny little thing I actually learned about this card when I was doing some research is that it's, well, for one thing, it's super important that you know how to read, especially in English when you're playing this card game. But that last bit with the at the end of turn, if there are no limit counters on this card, return to owner's hand, is super important, because if you've got ways, if you make a different deck build, it doesn't really apply here, but if you've got ways to untap your Resonator or make some sort of crazy combo where you're essentially attacking more than 2 or 3 times so you get rid of those limit counters in a turn, it doesn't leave the field until the end of turn. It doesn't need limit counters on it to be able to defend or attack until that end of turn, when it procs that no limit counters return back to hand thing. So that's an important thing to remember. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, especially with older cards, when we don't go back and reread. Oh my goodness, we're already getting close to half an hour. Okay, I'll kind of just plow through. Kaim, the Demon of Ice. So he's a 4-drop, 10/10, 2 colorless, and 2 red. He is a Demon Resonator, and I totally thought this dude was going to be the new ruler for the whatever advent of the Demon King, but apparently it's not. And the Demon King, or the one that we're supposed to think is the Demon King, isn't even a demon. He's like a wizard or something. Oh, well, I guess that's a gripe for another time. Anyway, so he's got the following ability, aside from being a really boss-ass looking 10/10. When this card enters the field, recover target target Resonator. Man, that'd be nuts if it was J/Resonator. So recover target Resonator with total cost 2 or less your opponent controls. Gain control of it until the end of turn. It gains swiftness until the end of turn. Whenever a Resonator you control attacks, this card deals 200 damage to your opponent, which is awesome, and that's one of the reasons why I also run the little dinky red caps, because you have a bunch of these little dinkies coming at them, but they're doing 200 damage with Kaim on the field every single time they attack. And he's got the activated ability, 1 red, banish a Resonator. This card gains swiftness until the end of turn. So ideally when you're casting him, if you want to get the most value out of him, you want to have 5 will open, because you want to cast him for 4, grab that Resonator, give it swiftness, attack with that Resonator, and then proc his activated ability for 1 red to be able to sack that Resonator so they don't get it back next turn, and then attack with this dude. So all in all, I'm just absolutely enthused, absolutely riveted, absolutely just parsnippity, snappity, excited that Lunya the Wolf Girl, and on her flip side, Nyarlathotep, the true false legend, is getting a second wind. And honestly, I think that a lot of other really cool rulers need to get it as well. I'm currently still trying to fulfill the request of, I guess now it would have been like 2 or 3 months ago, of one of my viewers who wanted me to make 1,000 keys deck. By now he / she / her / him / I'm not sure, because YouTube uses weird names, might have already made a significantly better 1,000 keys deck than I have. But I'm going to keep working on it, and honestly it's kind of devolving into, I might use this as like a lesson for how I build decks in the future, just because I'm having such a difficult time pinpointing what I actually want to do as the win con for the deck, because I think I've got too many things going. Anyway, so look forward to that. I'm also working, like I said, on the Mikage deck, and hopefully by the time I have all that stuff done, it'll be pretty close to the end of November, and then we can just look forward to the release of Advent of the Demon King. I hope you guys had a great time watching this video. I hope it wasn't too long-winded, though I know deep down it was. And, just be good to one another. Do the stuffs, guys. Keep on it. Force of Will is kind of teetering in my community. I can't tell if it's ready to make a breakthrough and be crazy good again, or if it's on its final legs, but I'm going to keep making these videos for as long as it's prevalent. And, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.